If those instructions are given, that's at the explicit request of the defendant. So I just want to make that crystal clear on the record.
Okay.
So we're not objecting to it, or that it's lesser included, but I just wanted to clear that part up.
Understood. Okay.
And we're requesting that they be given.
Okay. So I do think there is some evidence to support both, so I will give them. And other than that, it sounds like you don't have any other input on the content of the instructions. No.
No.
Okay.
I have just a question of procedure more than anything else. Did
Sure.
Your Honor give the instructions on the elements before closings or after closings?
After closings. I don't want to put them to sleep by going on for 20 minutes or a half an hour before your closing arguments. So I think it's generally better to do it after they're awakened by your impassioned arguments from both sides, and then I can launch into the final instructions.
That's fine. And then secondly, does Your Honor intend to send a written copy to the jury?
I do, yeah.
And I did notice, at least during the pre-charge, there were some stylistic deviations from the oral. Did they get an instruction that the oral controls over the written?
No, I mean, you're right. It's not word for word because I try to be a little more engaged than that, but I don't think substantively they're different. So, no, I don't give them any instruction about that.
And then I guess one last comment. We had requested an instruction about the right to carry. I noticed that's not in those instructions. I presume Your Honor is not giving that.
Well, I mean, I didn't get a response from the state. What's your position on?
We would object to that. They need to instruct on what is legal. They need to be instructed on the elements and what involves this case. So the legality of whether he can carry, and especially in this case where he's been charged with reckless conduct, and the jury may very well find that he had a lawful right to carry and that he wasn't a felon in possession, but they may find that going to a bar and drinking and carrying a gun is part of that recklessness that goes to his actions. So I don't think it's proper for I think it will just confuse the jury.
Okay.
Okay. Faulkner, any response?
Yes, he's not. That's not what he's charged with. He's charged with reckless conduct by means of firing the pistol, not by means of carrying it. The indictment is pretty clear on its face that it charges him with firing and in proximity to occupied motor vehicles and pedestrians.
Yeah, I mean, although the total sequence of events, I guess, is relevant to the reckless mental state. But
and if I may, Your Honor, I would say that, for example, I think it's de Montserrat is the case where the Jeep took the left-hand turn and motorcyclists struck the Jeep. And in that case, the court had ruled that the state was not allowed to get into whether or not the operator was impaired. However, they were able to consider the consumption of her alcohol as part of her mens rea for that offense. So she wasn't charged with driving under the influence, but the jury was allowed to consider her impairment as part of her mens rea. Similar here, as part of the recklessness of his actions, the jury can very well consider the fact that he had been drinking and was using a firearm while drinking.
yeah, no, I think that that's correct as a matter of law. It goes to the conscious disregard of a known risk. I guess that doesn't answer the question about whether to give an instruction about the use of the firearm or possession of a firearm. The reason I didn't give I didn't include the instruction as written by the defense is I think it's broader. I mean, it's not a correct statement of the law. I mean, there is no absolute right to carry a firearm, and no First Amendment isn't an absolute right. So, so I'm trying to think if there's another way to phrase that. I think it probably, to the extent, I mean, I think having the jury have some information about, not having them speculate about whether or not the defendant needed a, permit or anything like that, is appropriate. And I think it probably makes sense to put it in the context of the instructions about defensive use of a firearm. So maybe to say, maybe to say something like, except for circumstances not relevant to the case at bar, all individuals in New Hampshire have a right to possess and carry a weapon. I was looking for my Constitution here, because I think it's pretty clear in the state Constitution what the right is.
I would also say around that's requiring the jury to speculate, because there's no facts and evidence clarifying. No one's suggested that he is or is not lawfully allowed to carry a firearm as far as constitutionally. What I mean by that is criminal record-wise or any other restrictions. So there's no facts to apply that law. There's been no suggestion. The state's happy to make it clear, even in its closing, that the defendant lawfully bought and possessed that firearm. No one's going down the road that he shouldn't have been carrying, and no one has suggested that as a witness.
Okay. What's your response to that? I mean, so that's like saying, some people can drive and some people can't drive, and we don't instruct in driving, in like reckless driving cases that it's lawful to drive a car.
Right. I think it's just that it's a little bit, number one, it's a constitutional right, but also I think there's potentially a false perception out there that that somebody doesn't know that it's legal and he has a constitutional right to carry it. And we're not looking to undermine the recklessness instruction, just that the jury is instructed that, and looking at Article 2-A, all persons have a right to keep and bear arms in defense of themselves. I don't even know if the in defense of themselves needs to be added in, just that, even perhaps just an instruction that there was nothing unlawful about the defendant's possession of and carrying of a firearm, and that they're only to consider that in the circumstances of the case as to whether the state has proven the elements of the offense.
And that's the state's very concerned. Is that exact statement implies that the defendant in that moment is lawfully allowed to carry. Sure, he was allowed to carry as a constitutional issue, but whether or not the jury thinks he should not have been carrying and using a firearm is up for them to decide. I think Your Honor's point about the car is very apropos, given that we don't instruct on every legal thing that is allowed in any given case. And we had voir dire on this. Your Honor asked a lot of questions of each of the jurors about their inclination to feel passionate about firearms one way or the other. This has been ferreted out through voir dire. There's been no suggestion otherwise that would necessitate such an instruction. So I think the state would just rest on this argument. Unless Your Honor has any questions.
No. Bear with me a second. Okay, so this is my proposal, which I think balances both sides' concerns. So on page 20 of the current instructions, just before the list of the 4 situations, what constitutes use of a firearm for deadly force versus non-deadly force. So that paragraph would read, except in situations that are not relevant to this case, all persons have a constitutional right to keep and bear arms. Whether the defendant was lawfully entitled to use a firearm for self-defense is a question of fact for you to decide. With respect to the defensive use of firearms, the following considerations apply. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes, Your Honor, please.
You know our position. So.
Yeah, I know your position. I think it balances. I mean, I think in that situation it makes clear to the jury, there was nothing illegal for him to have it. Whether he could use it is ultimately a question for them to decide.
So I guess in that case, the state would request a similar instruction for Mr. Mendoza's actions on brandishing the pepper spray, because to the extent that defense has indicated that they're going to say that he is a felon and that he was in possession of pepper spray, which is obviously not unlawful, and it is also not unlawful to use non-deadly force in response to non-deadly force, which is what he did. So the state would ask for a similar instruction about the use of non-deadly force, such as displaying or brandishing pepper spray.
Okay, so fair point. So to that point, then I propose making the following change to that instruction that I just read, which is except in situations, because, right, part of this is who's acting in self-defense. Is Mr. DeLee acting in self-defense, or Mr. Mendoza, or one of the other individuals with Mr. Pouliot's group? And that's, again, going to be a question for the jury, so they're going to need to put together these self-defense instructions. So with that consideration, I would say, except in situations that are not relevant to this case, all persons have a constitutional right to keep and bear arms. Whether a person is lawfully entitled to use a weapon for self-defense is a question of fact for you to decide. With respect to defensive use of a firearm, the following considerations apply. So, okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yes, right. Thank you.
Okay. So with that, I will print these instructions, and do we have the jury? Okay. Okay, so we'll continue then with the witness. Do you want me to start? Do you want me to read the stipulations first, or do you want to finish? Like, I think you were going to begin, or Attorney Harrington, or whoever was going to do the questioning of Mr. Soldano. Do you want to do that first and then the stipulations, or do you want to read the stipulations first? Does it matter?
Just reserve the stipulations for the end, Your Honor.
Okay, that's fine.
Should Mr. Soldano be on the witness stand when the jury comes in?
Is he? Yeah. Okay. Just you bring him into the courtroom. That's fine.
All rise for the jury. Be seated, please.
Mr. Soldano, I'll just remind you, you're still under oath from your testimony yesterday. Do you understand that?
Yeah, I do.
All right, then have a seat.
Good morning, Mr. Soldano.
Good morning.
I think you know this, but there's water in front of you if you need it for anything. You know where the microphone is.
Yep.
My name's Rachel Harrington, and I represent the state. We've met before.
We have.
Okay. And as the court just instructed you, you know that you're still under oath from yesterday.
I do.
So that means that you've sworn under the pains and penalties of perjury that everything that you say here today will be the truth.
I do, yep.
And that's important because I want to ask you about some things that you testified to on the stand yesterday, okay? After the shooting, you ran into Soho with Gage Chandler, correct?
I did. Yep.
That's the first place that you went right after this happened?
Yes.
And you testified yesterday that you ran into Soho because you were scared, correct?
Yeah.
In fact, I think you said you were terrified at that point?
Yep.
Your friend had just shot somebody, right?
Yes.
You didn't know where he was at that time.
I did
right?
not know.
Where John was?
I did not.
You didn't know where Michael Mendoza was, right?
I did not.
I'm going to ask you to speak up just a little just so I can make
Yeah.
sure that we hear you, okay? You didn't know where Trenton Nash was at that time, right?
I did not.
You did know where Timothy Pouliot was, right?
I did, yes.
He was bleeding on the pavement outside of Soho, right?
He was.
Now, while you were in Soho, it was a little chaotic, is that fair to say?
Yeah, it was, yep.
Okay. And there were Manchester police officers
Yes.
that were there speaking to people?
There was, yep.
And one of these officers, Officer Munnelly, actually spoke with you, is that right?
Yes.
And he was in uniform? You knew he was a police officer?
I did, yep.
He was speaking with different people in the bar to find out who had seen what happened and kind of sort that out, is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And he was actually wearing a body camera at that time and was recording the footage when he spoke with people. Did you know that?
I did, yeah.
And he had a conversation with you that he recorded with that body camera, right?
He did, yep.
He took your name. Is that, I'm just going to
Oh,
ask you to say
yes,
yes,
yes.
just for the
Yes, he
record.
did,
No,
yeah.
I know we tend to nod, but I just want to make sure we get a record of you. He took your phone number.
He did, yep.
He took your all your contact information.
Yes, he did.
And he asked you at that point if you had seen or heard anything. Do you remember that?
I do, yes.
And you told him no, right?
I did, yep.
So you denied, and this is within, is it fair to say, minutes of what had just happened?
That is fair, yes.
So you denied seeing anything that had happened, correct?
I did.
And you denied hearing anything that had happened.
I did.
You didn't tell them that John had just shot someone, right?
I didn't.
You didn't tell him that John might be in danger.
I did not.
You didn't say that two of the guys that had been attacking John were still out there somewhere, right?
I did not, no.
You were actually smiling when you were talking with Officer Munnelly, weren't you?
I do not remember.
Have you seen the footage from
I have,
that
yeah.
camera?
I have.
Okay. May we approach your honor?
Right.
See what the prosecution does. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, rise and shine. Butter biscuits. Them butter biscuits. I don't want it. I don't want it. Them butter biscuits. All right, so we're going to see what the defense, well, right now they're doing cross-examination, but what other witnesses the defense brings. And I'm also wondering if Johnny Boy, or apparently Donny Boy, is going to testify. Will he take the stand? And it's Friday. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Got a really small crew today, too. Defense turn. Let's see this dude. Cross examine.
The footage of this body cam footage. When did you see this?
I believe it was when I made my police statement.
Okay, so your recollection is you think the officer
Yeah.
showed it to you?
I do.
So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to ask you to watch that footage with me. It's going to be a little strange. I'm going to ask you to watch it just yourself, not the jury.
Okay.
And listen to what's happening on there. And then I want to ask you some questions about it.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's early, right? Early, Mandy. Thank you for the memberships, gifting the memberships. Amazing. AC says I'm currently in the shower right now, and oh my goodness. People are pretty mixed about this, the outcome. Have you guys swaying a little bit from your opinion, or is it still the same? I think yesterday we did a poll. I think midday or the end of the day we should do another poll. I don't know if we should do one now. We'll wait a little bit. on as far as if he's guilty or not, or if it was self-defense. I was listening, by the way. They were kind of going back and forth about the jury instructions and adding the information about the gun being his constitutional right, because we were kind of wondering about whether, I mean, I know he brandished his gun outside of the bar, but he brought it into the bar too, you know, so would that count at like, him having the gun in the bar? Like, just is that alone reckless within itself, you know? But I guess over there you can. But I think they got the reckless charge on there because the way he shot out publicly like that in front of all these people, and because of the vehicle. I thought one of the witnesses said like the bullets flew over the vehicle. Happy Friday.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good morning, Carmelita. I woke up hungry for justice.
Get this back so you can see the whole thing. So before
Harry
this
Potter.
starts,
What time is it over there, Harry?
Can you see that at that angle?
Not really. No, it's a little dark. Yeah, that's better.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So
4 a.m.
do you recognize who that is?
I do.
Okay, who is that?
That is me.
Lucky.
So I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you just to listen through and watch.
Friend of the stand lied to the cops.
Can you see it still? I know
Yeah.
you moved it. Okay.
Is he a ride or die friend like Abby? Will Abby testify? They gotta pull Abby. They gotta bring in Abby. Ooh, Kenny said it is illegal to have a gun while drinking, though. Is it? Definitely reckless. So again, to remind you guys, the charges, right? So the charge one is 1 count of second-degree murder for knowingly causing Tim's death by shooting him. Charge 2 is 1 count of second-degree murder for recklessly causing the death of Timothy under circumstances manifesting an extreme indifference to the value of human life. Charge 3
Were you able to understand that?
Yeah.
is just being reckless for shooting multiple times in the proximity of occupied motor vehicles and or pedestrians. They're definitely going to nab him on charge 3, I think. Sure. 310.
So, Mr. Soldano, when you watch that footage, you're laughing at points of that footage.
I am, yes.
Okay. You're smiling with the officer?
I am.
You're joking back and forth a little bit about your name and the spelling of it and
Yeah.
that kind of context?
I am, yep.
Okay.
Oh, no.
You didn't ask the officer for help at any point in that interaction.
I did not know.
You didn't tell him that you were scared in that interaction?
I did not.
Right. You didn't tell him you were terrified.
I did not
No.
know.
And you didn't ask him to assist in any way with what had just happened with your friend John, correct?
Did not. Nope.
So, if you don't mind me asking, how tall are you, Mr. Soldano?
6 foot.
Yeah.
And how much about do you weigh?
200 pounds now. I was not then.
Okay. I'm sorry, could you say that again?
I'm about 200 pounds now. I was about 170 back in January.
Okay. Do you know how tall Gage Chandler is about?
I do not know exactly. I'd probably say about 5'10".
It's a little bit shorter than you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you talked about the fact that you've been friends with John DeLee since middle school.
Yeah, I knew him in middle school. We became more friendly once high school rolled around.
And you've continued to speak with him after his arrest in this case, correct?
I have.
At least 18 times?
Do not know exactly.
Sounds good.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Accurate. So I believe you testified yesterday, but please correct me if I'm wrong, that you did not see John DeLee hit the man with a cigarette when that interaction was happening. Is that correct?
I did not.
Do you recall giving sworn testimony under oath on a different occasion on April 21st of this year?
Yes.
And at that time, you said that you saw John punch the man with a cigarette. Is that
No, I did see him punch the man with the cigarette. Yesterday, I did not say that I didn't see him punch the man with the cigarette.
Okay, I'm sorry. Could you just clarify that for me? Maybe I misunderstood.
So I did see him. I didn't see him hit the guy. I saw him take a swing. But yesterday, I did not. I don't remember at least being asked if I saw him hit the man.
Okay, so can you describe for me again when you say you saw him take a swing?
So I was.
Demonstrate for me what you are.
Yeah.
What you're saying.
Yeah. So I was behind John. So I couldn't really see if he landed it or not, but I saw his arm come up and go around.
Okay. So he was partially blocking your view?
Yes.
All right. And that's why you couldn't see the end result of.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for clarifying. And you had said that after that is when things started to escalate and get worse. Is that correct?
Yes.
I want to ask you about something else that you talked about yesterday. You testified under oath yesterday that after you tried to get John to go down the alley near Soho, you said that you told him to stop. Is that correct?
I did, yep.
So I want to be really clear about that, because is it your sworn testimony here today that John DeLee turned around in that alley and came back because you told him to stop?
I told him to stop. I don't know why he turned around and started coming back.
So the shooting happened on January 28th,
It
correct? Okay. On January 29th, the day after this that you talked about yesterday, you testified under oath yesterday. The defense attorney, her name's Amy Wallace.
I did
You
indeed,
recall
yep.
that? Now, she was the first person that you gave a statement to, right? Because we just talked about the fact you didn't talk to the police that night, correct?
She is, yep.
And at that point, you knew that John had been arrested,
I did.
and you knew that it was important to share as much information as you had with her, right?
I did, yep.
And you gave her a statement at that time about everything that you remembered.
I did, yep.
And we just talked about how on April 21st, you gave some additional sworn testimony in this matter. And at that time, I gave you a copy of this report that Ms. Wallace had generated that talked about everything that you said in your statement, correct?
Yep.
And you had a chance to read through this all the way then?
I did, yep.
And I asked you to make any corrections that you thought should be made to this at that time?
You did, yep.
And you told me this was accurate, right?
I did, yep.
And there was nothing that should be added to it or changed about it?
I did, yep.
And you also said that if you remembered after the fact that there was anything different, you would reach out to Manchester PD or someone and let us know, correct?
I would, yep.
Okay. You never anywhere in this statement said that you told John DeLee to stop and come back in the alley. Is that correct? And I know you haven't seen it for a while, so if you want to read it.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is, just for the record, this is defense phase 15 through 18?
So you can take as much time as you want. Just go ahead and read it to yourself.
True. I don't know why I keep thinking this was like 2 years ago. I guess it was it January this year? But a biscuit. So, all right,
I'm all
let's see.
set.
Are you all set?
I am. No problem.
Now that you've had a chance to read it, Mr. Soldano, you never said in the statement anywhere that you told John to stop.
I did not, no.
You never said that you told him to come back.
I did not.
So the day after you spoke with Ms. Wallace, January 30th, you gave your first interview to Manchester Police Department, right?
I did.
And that was recorded?
It was.
And in that interview, you also never said that John turned around in the alley because you told him to stop, did you?
I did not.
In fact, you told those officers that you didn't even see John go into the alley, correct?
Yeah, I didn't think he even got into the alley. I thought he was at just like the beginning of it.
Okay. You also told those officers that the three guys weren't following you when you were going to the alley.
Yeah, so as we were headed to the alley, they weren't.
And then as we've talked about, on April 21st, you gave sworn testimony under oath. And that was recorded. And at that time, you never said that you told John to stop when he was going down that alley, right?
Yes. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. In fact, at that time under oath, you said that you wanted to get John to go up the alley by Soho to get back to his car, correct?
I did, yep.
At that point, you said you just wanted to go home.
Yep.
You didn't want to get in any fights.
Nope.
But John pushed past you to go back onto Old Granite Street, and you were worried when that happened, correct?
Yes, I was.
You could tell that it was not going to be friendly if they got back face-to-face with each other?
I did, yep.
But they were approaching you guys, and John was approaching them, correct?
Correct.
Squaring off, essentially, in the middle of the road?
Pretty much, yes.
And that's when someone lifted your shirt
Yes.
to see if you had a gun.
Correct.
You didn't have a gun.
I did not know.
So you told John one last time, let's get out of here?
Yeah.
And your intention at that point was to go back up the alley away from what was happening, correct?
It was, yes.
You just wanted to get out of there.
Correct.
But John wouldn't move.
He would not know.
So you turned your back and started to walk away at that point. That's what we've talked about. And
Yes,
you see on
correct.
the video with your hands up.
Correct.
At that point, you'd been yelling at him, correct?
Yes.
You've been trying to get him out of there.
Yep.
Is it fair to say that was your last-ditch effort to get him to leave with you? That
It wa-
point where we see you turning away.
Yes, it was.
But then you heard, at that point, you heard the gunshots?
I did indeed, yes.
Did I have a moment, Your Honor? I have no further questions.
That's it.
Yep.
Ah, man, y'all gotta come harder than that. They need a lane. Johnny Depp's the defense attorney.
Good morning.
Y'all gotta do better than that.
We talked yesterday about the moment you left the goat. What was your intention when you guys walked outside of the goat?
To go to the car and go home.
And what was the route to get back to the car?
Walking past Soho down to that alley.
And why was that the route?
Because that's the way we came in.
Okay. So at the moment you walk out of the goat, it's fair to say that your intention was to leave the way you came.
Exactly.
Did you try to do that?
I did.
Okay. At the moment you're walking up Old Granite Street, is there anybody following you?
My friends.
Anybody else?
No.
Were you aware of Mr. Michael Mendoza and Trenton Nash at that point?
I was not, no.
Okay. What about the individual that approached with the pepper spray?
Once he approached, that's when, well, it started. I knew something was going on when DeLee started going at it with the kid that was smoking the cigarette on the sidewalk.
Okay. The person who was smoking the cigarette, did he follow you up the street?
As we were moving, yes.
Okay. What about the person with the pepper spray? Did they follow you up the street?
For a period of time, yes.
Okay. So it's fair to say at some point they were following you.
Yes.
When you reached the Soho, did they follow you into the alleyway?
They did not know.
Do you recall what you were doing at the entranceway to that alleyway?
I do not know.
Okay. Were you speaking to anybody? Were you yelling at anybody?
I was yelling at DeLee after I told him to stop.
Okay. Anybody else you were speaking to?
No.
No further questions.
Recross?
I have nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, you can step down.
Thank you.
It's interesting that I never really seen them that they let them do like an unlimited amount of recrosses if they wanted to. I thought it was just like if it's the prosecution or the defense, they go, then the other party goes, and then there's a rebuttal, not a recross. I mean, I guess it's up to the judge. All right, who's next? Let's see. Prosecution was kind of weak on that. I thought they were going to go harder. Did they say Nash? I don't know. We'll see.
This way, please. Watch over.
Homie's coming through.
Good morning. Before you're seated, if you could just raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, have a seat.
Good morning, Mr. Nash.
Good morning.
My name is Benjamin Faulkner. I'm a lawyer for Mr. John DeLee. Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Trenton Nash, Nash.
Okay. I'm going to be asking you some questions, and then an attorney from the state may ask you some questions as well.
Yes, sir.
We've never met before, right?
No.
And prior to January 27th of 2023, you had never met John DeLee before, correct?
Correct.
You didn't know him or any of his friends, right?
No.
How old were you on January 27th?
I was 21.
Okay. And you live just outside of Portland, Maine, right?
Correct.
But you had come down to meet with Michael Mendoza, right?
Yeah.
How long had you known Michael Mendoza?
At that point, probably about a year.
How did you meet him?
I met him through some other friends.
Did you know Timothy Pouliot as of January 27th?
Not quite. He's somebody that I've met before, but it's not like the same time frame, time period.
Fair to say that you knew him through Trenton Nash? I mean, through Michael Mendoza?
Yeah.
Now, at some point on January 27th, you find yourself at the Goat Bar, right?
Correct.
And you went there with Michael Mendoza?
Yeah.
And where had you been before?
Before, I was actually in Portland, so I drove all the way out here to meet up with him.
All right, but didn't you go to another bar before you went to the Goat?
Yeah, but I'm not quite sure what the name of it was.
All right. But fair to say this is your second bar of the evening?
Yeah, it'd be about the second, yeah.
Okay. About?
Yeah.
You think there might have been a few more?
Well, I think we might have went somewhere before, but I don't remember. I just remember there was one place around the corner that we did go to.
At some point when you're inside of the Goat, do you find yourself talking to a group of girls?
I mean, many groups of girls,
At some point, do you find yourself talking to a group of girls alongside Michael Mendoza and Timothy Pouliot, and there's 3 girls and 3 men having a conversation?
Yeah, at some point.
And do you recall that conversation ending when a tall man approached?
No, not really.
Fair enough. How long were you in the Goat?
That's a hard time to remember.
No, just give me your best estimate.
I'd say probably 45 minutes to an hour.
And you're there. Well, who are you there with?
I was there with Michael.
You're not there with Timothy?
No, not necessarily. I never really talked to him much, It was kind of first introduction and then ongoing.
Do you ever have any conversations with Timothy or Michael about any problems they're having inside the bar?
No,
None at all?
no.
And Did anything unusual happen while you were inside of there?
I mean, other than the fight, nothing that I found unusual.
All right. So you noticed some kind of a fight at some point?
I mean, yeah, it was kind of like an uproar on the opposite side of me, you know?
All right. Why don't you tell me in the best words that you can what happened?
Basically, I'm over by the stage. And, you know, I just see security guards rushing towards, like, I want to say it was like a ramp, kind of going down to, like, a dance floor. And after that, I mean, I see Mike getting escorted out by a security guard, so I follow him. Because, I mean, that's the guy that I was with.
All right. So how far away are you from the ramp at that point?
Probably from me to, like, the first row of the seating.
Okay. So you don't have to adopt what I have to say. Just let me know if I'm right. Would you estimate that's maybe about 20, 25 feet?
I'd say so, yeah.
And so do you see the fight?
No, I didn't even realize that there was a fight at first.
The only thing you noticed is Michael was getting escorted out after something happened.
Well, yeah, there's something that went down. There had to have been, you know. So I kind of just followed afterwards.
Let's go. Is he perma-stoned?
Who gets out first, you or Michael?
It was kind of both of us, you know. I was right behind him.
How did you get from Portland to Manchester?
I drove.
What kind of car do you have?
It wasn't my personal car. It was my brother's car at the time.
What did you drive?
It was a Chevy Cruze.
Okay. Where did you park it?
It was right over by the first bar that we went to.
How'd you get from the first bar over to the Cove?
I ended up walking.
Did you know where Michael Mendoza's car was parked?
For the first one or the GOAT?
When you were all at the Goat, did you know where Michael Mendoza's car was?
Not originally, but he was parked out front when we were leaving.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I just forgot your answer. Did you get out first or did Michael?
What do you mean?
Out of the bar.
Out of the bar? I can't tell. You know, we were kind of both right with each other. I don't remember if he was in front of me or if I was in front of him.
Okay. Where did you go?
We went right outside, straight to his car pretty much.
Okay. And both of you got in the car, right?
Yeah.
Did you have any conversation with Timothy before you left the bar?
No.
JPC, thank you for gifting the membership.
So when you guys get into the car,
gifts.
what's the conversation?
There wasn't really any conversation. And I was having a lot of anxiety, so I got out to smoke a cigarette. At the time, I had injured ribs.
Good. Try to listen to the questions and answer the questions. So you didn't have a conversation with Michael Mendoza while you were inside of that car?
No, there wasn't really any conversation.
And does Michael allow smoking in his car?
No, he doesn't.
Did you tell him you were getting out to smoke a cigarette?
Yeah.
What was the plan? Were you going to go somewhere in his car?
I mean, he was going to originally, if I was too, you know, wasted to drive, he was just going to drive me back to his house. But, you know, everything went down, so it kind of ended differently.
When you got into Michael Mendoza's car, your understanding was that he was going to drive you somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But instead you decided to get out and smoke a cigarette first.
Yeah.
And when you got out to smoke the cigarette, where'd you go?
I just went right back across the street. There was a snowbank right next to the car that I wasn't able to stand on at the time.
Was the sidewalk on the other side of that snowbank clear?
Yeah, but it was pretty icy out. You know, on that side, it was pretty icy. It wasn't as big of a sidewalk on that side.
So you decided to cross the street and go back to the other side?
Yeah,
And there was somebody yelling over there, right?
yeah,
And without getting into what he said, he caught your attention with his yelling, right?
yeah.
And you were upset about whatever he was yelling?
I wasn't necessarily upset. I just kind of told him, like, it doesn't really matter. It's not, none of this is worth it. Originally didn't even know who that was at first, and then 2 and 2 kind of clicked.
All right. So at some point you realized he was the person that had been in some kind of scuffle with
Well, yeah,
Michael?
when the group on the sidewalk started yelling at me, that's when it kind of clicked, and then a lot of things just happened fast.
All right. Now, I just want to go backwards a little bit, or strike that. You were aware that Michael Mendoza was wearing rings that night, right?
Yeah.
On both of his hands?
I don't know exactly what hands they were. I don't really pocket watch.
Okay. But you remember he was wearing rings?
Yeah.
Because at some point the police asked you about that, right?
Yeah.
And they had asked you whether he had any weapons, right?
Yeah.
And you said, I don't know if this counts as a weapon, but he was wearing rings, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't count as a weapon. At least I don't think it does.
Oh, now you think it doesn't count as a weapon?
Well, I don't know if it is or not,
But when you were asked whether he had any weapons, you felt the need to disclose that to the police, right?
Well, I mean, if it is a weapon, that's something. But at the same time, in my mind, it's not really a weapon.
Okay. So,
Is it a weapon, guys?
did you have any weapons that night?
No.
None at all?
No.
Well, it's just a regular ring, right? Or is it those punch rings? Brass.
Fair to
Thing.
say the conversation with the tall man goes rather poorly?
Yeah, it wasn't the best.
And by the way, that tall man, he's that man sitting over at the second table to my right, right?
That's correct.
Andy, thank you for the super chat.
Mr. John DeLee, right?
That's correct.
Jeff Lady, good morning.
So how did
Amy,
you
Alana.
realize that he was the person who had been in a scuffle with Mr. Mendoza?
Mainly what he was saying, just going off of what he was saying. And,
And he was making derogatory comments about him. Is that why?
yeah.
Okay.
But, I mean, I can't say who it was aimed towards, at the same time.
Was he telling you to get lost?
No.
Did he push
Not
you at some
necessarily. Push?
point? Yeah.
No,
He
he
up, right?
he punched me,
He punched you.
and then he tried shaking my hand, and then he punched me again.
Oh.
At some point, did Mr. Mendoza become involved in this interaction?
Well, yeah, he saw me getting assaulted, so as a good friend, you're gonna go up and help your friend.
All right. And he came over with a can of pepper spray, right?
Yeah,
And held it right into John DeLee's face.
he wasn't right in his face. He was probably about 6-7 feet away.
But he held it up at face level, right?
I wouldn't say face level. There's a good height difference there.
Okay. He pointed it at him, right?
Yeah.
Hostile witness.
And at that point, what does Mr. DeLee do?
Oh, thank you, Renee. On
I want to say he started stumbling back, and then he pulled the gun out.
Dropped it on the ground, right?
Yeah, but it's kind of like a drop on the pull out of the waistband. It wasn't something that I had a firm grip on and then placed down. It was more of I stumbled it.
All right. And after he dropped it, what did he do next?
Picked it right back up and kept yelling right at us.
What was he yelling?
I can't give exact statements. I don't remember exactly fully what he was yelling.
Something along the lines of, get away from me, I have a gun, right?
No. He didn't state that he had a gun at all.
Okay. But he was holding it.
Yeah, he was holding it.
And was he telling you to get lost at that point?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, but, you know, you get assaulted, you're going to be a little frustrated.
So, right around that point, is that when John walks away with his friends?
He didn't really walk away. You know, it was like a backward strut.
So he struts backwards, and then he turns around and walks up the sidewalk, right?
I wouldn't necessarily say he walked up the sidewalk. You know, he was still talking to us the whole time.
What's he saying?
I can't remarkably put down what he was saying. You know, I don't really remember too much conversation from that night, as I was heavily influenced under the alcohol, so a lot of words just kind of jumbled up in the brain, so I don't really remember the conversations that were going on at the time.
How many drinks did you have that night?
Pretty good amount.
How old is Michael Mendoza?
I want to say 39.
This is as of back in January.
Probably 38 in January.
Hanging out with the younger kids.
So, at any rate, Mr. DeLee is moving up along the sidewalk, right?
Correct.
And where do you and Michael go?
I mean, we're on the other side of the street, and we kind of just keep walking parallel with them.
It said
You
that
know, but
after
both
that.
parties are yelling at each other, so it's
What are you yelling at the time?
pretty much like that. It was uncalled for. The punches in the face, it was uncalled for. You know?
Fair to
birthday,
say
Monica.
that Mr. DeLee and his friends
Happy birthday.
are out ahead of you and Mr. Mendoza as you're moving up the street?
Yeah, but not too far.
Okay. Did Mr. Mendoza at any point yell back to Timothy Pouliot?
No.
You don't remember hearing him say anything to Mr. Pouliot?
I didn't hear nothing to Mr. Pouliot. Nothing was said to him at that point.
At some point you left the roadway, right?
Not necessarily. I mean, it kind of all happened in the middle of the road.
You don't remember going into a parking lot or something along those lines?
Well, I mean, after the shots rang out, I started running.
Not beforehand?
I mean, not beforehand. I stepped up onto the sidewalk because there were some people standing over at a truck. And, you know, I could kind of hear them just, like, talking about what was going on.
I see. So you didn't go into the parking lot, but you did get up onto the far sidewalk away from John DeLee, right?
Well, I was still in the road. You know, I was right there. Like I said, that sidewalk was pretty icy.
What about Michael? Is he with you at this point?
And he was right in the road, too.
But I mean, is he close to you or is he close to John DeLee?
I'd say probably about 10 feet from me.
And at some point, John DeLee kind of makes it to the head of the alleyway, right? Just past Soho.
Is that the Soho, the one right next to the goat?
Yeah. So if you walk out of the goat and you turn right and keep going up the street, there's another bar, right?
Yeah.
So let's call it the second bar. Does that work?
Yeah.
From now on, when I'm talking about the second bar, I'm talking about the bar that's up the street from the goat.
Yeah.
And on the far side of that bar, there's like an alleyway, right?
Yeah.
Did Mr. DeLee make it to the sort of intersection between that alleyway and the street at some point?
Well, I mean, he was still in the street, but yeah, he was somewhat towards that alleyway.
So more or less across the street from you.
Yeah.
Who approaches him first?
What do you mean?
Does anybody approach John DeLee at that point?
Like, come up to him?
Yeah.
I think Timmy did.
So you stayed behind on the sidewalk while Timmy approached him first, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of focused on, there's a group of kids over by a truck that I was kind of focused on. You know, so I don't really recall who was up there first, you know.
But after Timothy approached him, then you and Michael also approached, right?
Not necessarily approached. It was more of like we were still standing there talking, you know.
What's the conversation like at that point? I mean, even if you don't remember exact words, what's going on there?
I mean, pretty much both sides going at it. One side saying, you know, stop, and the other side saying, put the gun down. There's no need for the gun.
So who's saying stop?
He had a few friends that were off onto the sidewalk, and there was one with like longer hair.
And he was yelling to stop?
Yeah.
To you guys or to Mr. DeLee?
I think he was yelling at him, but I'm not too sure, you know.
What's Mr. DeLee saying?
He's, at that point, I can't really recall what he was saying.
Somehow, all six of you come together, right?
Yeah.
Was it you or Mendoza who said, it's New Hampshire pussy, we all have guns?
I don't recall that being said at all.
Was it communicated in any way to Mr. DeLee that you had guns?
No.
Did you have a gun?
No, I did not.
You know whether Mr. Mendoza did?
He definitely did not.
Did you check him?
No, but I know I don't have to check him. It's one of those things where you can kind of tell if somebody has a gun.
Okay. So, very cold that night, right?
Yeah.
You're wearing a coat, right?
Yeah.
You remember taking the coat off?
Yes, I do.
That's when you were squaring up for a fight, right?
I was not squaring up for a fight.
Why you took it
Did you
off?
take off your coat because you were hot?
Pretty much. Like I said earlier, I did have a rib injury. So my ribs at that point, all the movement going on was just kind of firing up right up on the inside. So, you know, that's the only way that I could get it down.
Yes, come on.
It just wasn't squaring up for a fight.
We all know you.
I was pretty much trying to tell him, like, there's no need for any of this.
Do you remember searching the guy with long hair for a gun?
I didn't search anybody.
You don't remember lifting up his shirt and asking him if he had a gun?
I didn't search anybody.
I didn't say the word search. You don't remember lifting up anybody's shirt?
No, I didn't.
Show them the video. Is there a video?
At some point, Mr. DeLee's standing in the middle of the roadway with Timothy Pouliot facing him. You remember that?
Yeah.
And to the left of Mr. Pouliot is Mr. Mendoza, right?
Correct.
And to the left of Mr. Mendoza is you, right?
Correct.
So you kind of have like a little semicircle going on around Mr. DeLee, right?
It wasn't a semicircle. It was a, you know, shoulder to shoulder. We were all standing together.
And the tall guy with long hair, you remember him turning around and walking away with his hands on his head?
Yeah.
You remember why that happened?
Not necessarily.
And then the other guy that was with Mr. DeLee, do you remember where he was at that point?
No. I mean, after that point, I didn't see him at all.
By the way, when exactly did you take off the coat?
I don't remember exactly. I just know that it was after I started walking. You know, when I started walking further up the street, that's when it came off.
Left in the middle of the street?
Pretty much, yeah.
Because of your rib injury.
Yeah.
How come you didn't go put it back in the car?
I don't know.
Were you worried it was going to get stolen?
Not necessarily.
So, when you're standing shoulder to shoulder facing Mr. DeLee. At some point, we'll strike that. When you're standing shoulder to shoulder to Mr. DeLee and Mr. Soldano, or the other man with long hair is walking away with his hands on his head, what is being said between the three of you and Mr. DeLee?
I can't really recall too much about what was being said.
Well, do you remember Timothy punching Mr. DeLee in the face?
Somewhat, not too much. A lot of that night has kind of faded away, but as I can say, I can't really recall too much of the conversation that was going on.
Mr. DeLee didn't do anything to cause himself to be punched in the face at that moment, did he?
I have no idea. Not to me, at least. He didn't do anything to me, at least. So.
Yeah, and you didn't see him do anything to Michael Mendoza at that point, did you?
Go ahead. You can.
No, me personally, I didn't.
And you didn't see him do anything to Timothy Pouliot, did you?
No.
And in the split second after he got punched in the face, you saw him pull out his firearm and start shooting, right?
Yeah.
Directly at Timothy Pouliot, right? Right?
Correct.
And you went running, right?
As a normal person would. You hear gunshots and it's not necessarily something that you want to be caught on.
Where did you run to?
Down the street, there was a parking garage right across. There was a key bank and then a parking garage. I went right behind the parking garage.
Do you remember bumping into the group of girls that you've been talking to earlier in the night?
I think, yeah, when I was coming back to the scene.
Did you have a conversation with them?
No, I didn't have a conversation with them. I apologized. I said I was sorry, and then...
So I guess this is a defense witness. I guess he had just met John that night, I guess, right? That's what they said. But he knows Mendoza. He's friends with Mendoza. They were at Mendoza's house before they got there, I guess. He seems like he doesn't really want to be involved in this trial or in this situation, and kind of, I don't know, maybe not remembering things that you would think he would remember.
In a case that one side or the other objects, and before they can rule on the objection or before they can get up to object, the witness answers a question. And so when that happens and I sustain the objection and in other words, I rule that the answer is not admissible, that testimony is stricken from the record. So the witness's last answer about what was said as he was returning from the parking lot is not to be considered by you as evidence in the case. It's not admissible. Okay.
Did you ever see Mr. Mendoza take off his rings?
No, I didn't.
No further questions.
Corey, thank you for the membership. Yes. Maddie, thank you for the membership gifts. Also, thank you, JPC. Appreciate that.
Good morning, Mr. Nash.
Good morning.
My name is Rachel Harrington,
Thank you for the super chat, too.
and I'm an attorney for the state. We've never met before, correct?
No.
Okay. So I just have a few more questions for you.
He just
other
met all
than
of them.
what Attorney Faulkner was just asking you. To start off, what's your height, Mr. Nash?
I say about 5'10", 5'11".
Okay. Do you mind if I ask you how much you weigh, about?
Roughly 135, 130 pounds.
So you've been asked a lot of questions about what was said in those final moments when you and Michael Mendoza and Timmy are up there with the defendant and the man that you described as having long hair, who's a friend of the defendant,
Correct.
and up at that corner. I know you don't remember exactly what was said, but can you describe for me what the defendant looked like, what his demeanor was like?
I mean, the demeanor was, you could see the anger. It kind of just poured out in anger instead of like how a normal person would be content. If I'd have to describe it, it was kind of barbaric.
Objection and motion to strike.
See? It's almost like it's a prosecution witness. Damn. Barbaric.
Did you feel like he was being aggressive to you?
Not towards me at first. I didn't feel, I get it, on the side of the street, he's looking for whoever he's looking for, but towards me, necessarily no.
Did you feel like he was being aggressive towards Timmy or towards Michael?
Not until everything came up to where both groups were meeting.
Okay. And that's the part I'm talking about, right in that moment when you guys are up in that corner.
Yeah.
Facing off right before Timmy punches him and he shoots. Like, did you feel like the defendant wanted to fight somebody in that group?
Yeah.
But not necessarily you? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, I wouldn't say not necessarily me, but you could tell that there was the rage in his eyes.
Yeah.
After the shooting happened, I know you described how you ran initially, but at some point that night you spoke with the police, right?
Yeah.
Was that before you actually left the area?
No, so I ended up running, and then I came back, and that's when I started speaking to the police.
And were those officers that were on the street at that point?
Yeah, they were kind of everywhere, in parking lots, on the street.
Right. And did you tell them what you had seen?
Not at first, and then they brought me back to the station, and I kind of just released everything that I had seen from my perspective.
Okay, so just to be clear, on the side of the road, were they doing just kind of quick conversations to figure out who knew what? That type of thing?
Pretty much, informational basis and everything as well.
Okay. But once they realized you were a witness, you went to the station with them to give them an actual interview?
Correct.
Let me just have a moment.
I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr.
Is it? Yeah, moving quick. Defense coming back, or is it done? At least it's going fast.
So you felt that the defendant was aggressive and angry during this last sort of meeting?
Yeah, when we were all face to face.
Did you feel that you were being aggressive and angry at that time?
No, I wouldn't say that I was.
I was the peacekeeper.
What about Timothy? Was he being aggressive and angry?
I wouldn't say that any of us were being
peaceful
aggressive
too.
and angry on our side.
No, not at all.
What about the video, huh?
Not that I could see.
What about Michael?
I wouldn't say he was being aggressive and angry.
It's kind of cool, calm, and collected.
Yeah, I mean, we were all just,
Chilling.
we were there. Things were happening.
We just existed.
No
Coexist.
further questions.
I think it's kind of a little BS on this guy's part.
Mr. Nash, just to be fair, though, there's a lot of back and forth that was happening on that corner, right?
Yeah,
It's fair to say there's a lot of words being thrown back and forth that aren't friendly.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, you can step down. You're all set.
I mean, we saw the video. I'm not saying it was right for Tim to get shot, but just to be like, we're just these peacekeepers and we're just complete peace and we weren't angry or upset. We were just cool and mellow and, hey, bro.
That's what Michael Mendoza.
It was a little more than that, bro. But that was interesting. Yeah, it doesn't really look like he didn't want to be a part of none of this shit. He kind of like forced him to come in or whatever, peanut his ass. All right, who we got now? It's interesting. Let's see what this is. Mendoza, maybe. It's interesting to see these witnesses
Do you
from the
solemnly swear
night.
the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please have a seat.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
State your name for the record, please.
Michael Mendoza.
Mendoza.
Michael,
Okay.
my name is Patrick. Have we met before today?
Briefly in the hallway on Tuesday.
Okay. But before Tuesday, have we met before?
No.
Michael, I want to bring your attention back to January 27th of 2023. That's January 27th of earlier this year, into the early morning hours of January 28th. Do you have a memory of that time period?
Yes.
Could you first set the stage for me? Where were you that night?
In Manchester at the GOAT.
Okay. Were you anywhere else that evening?
I was at McGarvey's.
Where's
Well-
McGarvey's?
McGarvey's is on Elm Street, and also walked from McGarvey's to Imperial, which is also a bar on Elm Street, and walked from Imperial to the GOAT.
Okay. Were you with anybody?
At McGarvey's, I ran into a couple friends of mine. Yes.
Okay. What about at the Go? Were you with anybody?
Yes, we all walked down to the GOAT.
When you say we all, who was with you?
At McGarvey's, I ran into a friend of mine, Adam, and his friend Alex, and me and Trent Nash. We went to McGarvey's together. He picked me up from Granite Street from my car that I parked at.
It's fair to say at some point you end up at the Goat.
Yes.
Okay. Who was with you at the Goat?
Me, Trenton, Alex, and Adam.
Did you meet up with anybody else at the Goat that you knew?
Just people that I know from the town.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing.
Yeah,
If
you
you could just slide yourself forward, there's a mic right in front of you, that'd be great.
Do you know an individual named Timothy Pouliot?
Yes.
Okay. Did you meet him at the Goat?
Yes, I ran into him at the GOAT.
This the guy that's like 39 or something? 30.
Do you recall what time you arrived at the Goat?
No.
Do you recall what time you left the Goat?
Right before closing.
Okay. Do you recall just your best estimate how long you were at the Goat?
I have no idea. An hour and a half, 2 hours, I have no idea.
Were you consuming alcohol that evening?
Yes.
Fair to say you consumed some alcohol at each establishment you went to?
Yes.
Do you recall how much you were drinking at the Goat?
No. I have a limit. So I'm not sure. Maybe 2 beers, I'm not sure.
Oh.
I'm going to ask you some questions about Timothy Pouliot
Yes.
at the Goat. Do you recall at some point standing with Timothy speaking to a group of girls or young women?
Yes.
Do you recall where inside the Goat that was?
It was at the end of the rail. The
And when you say the end of the rail, what other things are around that to sort of give us a sense of what the scene looks like?
beginning of the dance floor.
Were you there alone with them?
It was me, him, and Trent Nash.
Okay. And how many girls were there again? How many young women?
3.
Okay. And you were having a conversation with them. Talk to me a little bit about that.
We was just conversating.
Okay. At some point, did a larger individual come down the ramp towards that group?
I didn't notice that. I didn't notice.
You didn't notice that? You didn't notice at any point Mr. John DeLee walking down the ramp towards that group of girls?
No.
At some point, did you move away from the group?
Yes, at some point I left the group. Either I don't know, I might have went and grabbed another drink. I'm not sure, but I left the group.
Okay. Were you with anybody when you left the group? Or
I
did you
believe
leave
I
on
was
your-
with Trent.
Okay, you believe you were with Trenton. Did Timothy follow you?
No.
Okay, so Timothy stayed.
Yes.
All right. Do you recall what Timothy was doing when you left?
He was just communicating with the girls. They was just talking.
Okay, you didn't see him communicating with anybody else.
No.
So at this point, you think you may have gone to the bar to get another drink?
Yes.
Do you run into Timothy again within the next 5 or 10 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Where was that?
I'm not sure exactly where we were standing.
Okay. Is it possible you were up at the bar getting a drink, or were you someplace else?
Possibly. I'm not sure.
Did you have a conversation with Timothy at that point?
Yes.
Now, you said you were with a group of girls, young women, earlier. That group come up to you again or come up to the bar during that period of time?
I can't remember.
Okay. You were having a conversation with Timothy at this point?
Yes.
All right. Were you having a conversation with Mr. Nash as well?
I can't remember.
Do you know if he was present for that conversation?
Possibly. I'm not sure.
Timothy tell you anything about his interaction with the young women?
No.
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 Did he tell you anything about a conversation with Mr. John DeLee?
Yes. I did not know who he was referring to.
Okay. But maybe, hey, I had a conversation with a bigger guy.
Yes.
Okay. What did he tell you?
He said that someone tried to fight him.
Somebody tried to fight him. Okay. What did you say to Timothy when that happened?
I told him to forget that guy. We're having a good night. And we're going to the strip club after.
Okay. So you were going someplace else after this, right?
Yes.
And Timothy was going to come along with you?
Initially, no, but I invited him at that point.
Okay. Do you believe he was going to come with you?
Yes.
Where do you go after you have this conversation?
Back down to the dance floor.
Okay. Are you present when Timothy is talking to you about how he's a professional fighter?
No.
And you're not present when he says he's going to knock Mr. John DeLee out?
No.
And you told Timothy at that point that you'd be happy to knock Mr. John DeLee out?
No.
Mr. Mendoza, I have some brief questions for you. You the same Michael Mendoza that was convicted in the state of New Hampshire on a matter from 2008 regarding a shooting incident at 125 North Main Street in Rochester, New Hampshire?
Ooh. Nah, man, bring it up. Bring the skeletons. Let's go, baby. I thought so. The whole thing of Mendoza. I mean, we saw Mendoza on video. Didn't Mendoza punch? Oh, no, wait, hold on. I'm confusing that. I'm confusing it for Timmy's people, right? No, he threatened to. So where do we get the information that he threatened to punch somebody? Thank you, Herberg. Good morning. Say hi to the baby for me. Thank you. This is I had the shirt for a very long time. One of my favorites. I have a couple that I really like, but this one I had it for a while.
Mr. Mendoza,
Bring it up, baby. Let's go.
do you recall being indicted in the state of New Hampshire in 2008?
Yes.
Do you recall that the indictment that you faced in the state of New Hampshire in 2008 was an indictment for falsifying physical evidence?
Yes.
And you were convicted of that offense?
Yes.
And do you recall as well being indicted in the state of New Hampshire in 2008 for the crime of tampering with a witness?
Yes.
And you were convicted of that offense?
Yes.
Ooh.
And do you recall being indicted again in the state of New Hampshire for the crime of tampering with a witness in 2008, again, for a different incident regarding a lease?
I'm not sure.
Your name is Michael Mendoza?
Yes.
Come on, man. How you not gonna know? What do you mean not sure?
Your date of birth
Oh, hey, doctor does that. Put him on
is December
Oh,
of 1983.
oh my
Yes.
God.
And you recall that on multiple occasions you've been both indicted and
Oh, the girl
convicted
said
of
that, yeah.
tampering with a witness.
It's all at the same time. Not multiple.
Just want to hear that part again.
Tampering with a witness. Recall that on multiple occasions you've been both indicted and convicted of tampering with a witness.
It's all at the same time. Not multiple.
So there are multiple indictments for tampering with a witness
Yes.
and multiple convictions for tampering with a witness.
Yes.
This is interesting. This is interesting, and I think they're gonna bring Abby to clean it up too. At some point, Abby's hopefully they have her as a
And
witness.
Mr. Mendoza,
She's still snitching to this
on the
day.
evening in question, did you find yourself once again at the bottom of the ramp, close to the dance floor?
Yes, that's usually where at that bar. That's usually where I stand.
Okay, so it's fair to say that you were hanging out in that particular area
Yes.
for good portions of the evening?
Yes.
Okay. At some point, you recall Timothy Pouliot coming back down that ramp?
Yes.
He had a conversation with you, a brief one, correct?
Yes.
A brief one in which he essentially taps you on the shoulder and says something in your ear, correct?
Yes.
And it's at this point that you walk right over to Mr. John DeLee and punch him in the face.
Objection only to leading.
Yeah, sustained.
Mr. Mendoza, I asked you a question about Mr. Pouliot coming down the ramp. Do you remember that happening?
Yes.
Okay. What does he do next?
He tells me that the guy tried to fight him again, and he pushed him.
Okay. And at this point, you walk right over to John DeLee and you punch him in the face.
I don't like bullies.
Okay. Did you punch him in the face?
I believe I did not. I believe I tried to.
Okay. What happened next? You went to the ground with him?
Went to the ground and we was throwing punches.
Okay. You were throwing punches at him.
Yes, we were throwing punches at one another.
Okay. What happened next?
We both was removed from the bar.
Okay. Was there a police officer present?
Yes.
Do you remember having an interaction with that police officer?
He just, I believe, walked me out the door, told me to have a good night.
All right. So you left the goat at that point?
Yes.
Where do you go after you leave the goat?
I went directly across, went to my car.
Who are you with?
Trent Nash.
Okay. Do you recall where Trenton Nash was with you when you left the goat?
Trenton doesn't know anyone in Manchester. He came out, asked me to come out with him, and he followed me along with me
All right.
to go back. His car wasn't parked there. His car was parked at McGarvey's.
All right. Is McGarvey's on Old Granite Street?
About a 10-minute walk.
It's a 10-minute walk from Old Granite Street.
Yes.
You said you went out to your car. Did you get in your car?
I got in my car.
Okay. Trenton got in your car too?
He was trying to get, I parked too close to the snowbank. He was trying to get in the car, and he wanted to smoke a cigarette, which I don't allow in my vehicle.
All right. So he didn't get in the car.
He started getting in the car, yes.
Did Trenton stay by the car?
Trenton tried to get in the car. I believe he might have asked me if he could smoke a cigarette, and I said, no, you can't, not in the car. And he never shut the door. He was trying to get in with the snowbank and then got right back out. Trenton, we had two friends that walked from McGarvey's with us, which was Alex and Adam. They were still in the GOAT. Their vehicle was also parked at McGarvey's. So we wanted to Trenton was going to go back and get them so that we could all go back to their vehicles.
Okay. What happens next?
Trenton started walking towards the goat. John DeLee came out of the goat screaming. I was in my vehicle. I was ready to go back to McGarvey's. And I don't know what was going on, what was said between John DeLee and Trent. And Trent was just casually walking that way. Trent later told me what was said between them. And I was watching and I witnessed John DeLee punch Trent in the face.
Okay. What did you do now?
I believe I took my coat off at that point, and waited to see what was going on. Didn't know if it was just let it cool down, if the guy was going to keep going or what. And then he struck Trent again, and at that point I got out of my vehicle.
Okay. You said you took your coat off. Is it cold out?
Yes.
Snow on the ground?
Yes.
Is it icy out?
I guess so.
What do you do next?
I got out of the vehicle. I walk over. John was yelling at Trent, and I pulled out my pepper spray and told him to back off.
So at this point, John's yelling at
Yet he had already assaulted him twice.
Yeah, but he's yelling at him, right?
Yeah.
You said you had pepper spray in your hand?
Yes.
You had it in front of you, behind you, in your pocket?
I had it in my hand. I walked over to him and I told him to back up.
You pointed it at him?
Yes.
What happened next?
Told him to back off or I was going to spray him.
Okay.
I didn't know if he was going to continue attacking Trent. Trent's not a fighter. He's a humble kid.
Where's Trent at this point?
Probably, I don't know, standing there somewhere. At that time,
Is John actively punching Trent when you walk up with the pepper spray?
he punched him once. I waited a couple seconds. I believe Trent tried to shake his hand or something, and then he punched him again. And there was no telling if he was going to keep retaliating or what was going on. Trent had nothing to do with any of the situation.
At the moment,
Sorry, I couldn't hear the witness's answer.
Michael, I'm going to ask you to speak up as best as you can. Could you repeat your last answer?
I wasn't sure if he was going to continue hitting Trent
Okay.
or
At
anything.
the moment that you walk up,
Yes.
is John actively punching Trent?
No.
About how many people are on the sidewalk with John?
5, 6.
Okay. Were any of them pushing or shoving anybody else?
No one else. They were just yelling at John.
What happens when you point the pepper spray at John?
I told him to back up or I was going to spray him to stop. And he pulled out a gun
Okay.
and said if I spray him, he would shoot me.
Did you drop the gun?
He pulled the gun out, dropped it, picked it back up, and at that point I backed up and I believe he racked the gun.
At some point. Well, what does John do next?
It's just, he was just yelling. His friends told him, go, put the gun away, go, go, go.
Did
And
that happen? Did they go?
they started walking down the sidewalk towards
Say they're walking down the sidewalk. What direction are they going?
Elm Street.
Okay. Could you give us a landmark? What direction they're going in?
Towards Soho,
Okay. What's the Soho?
a restaurant.
Okay. What do you do?
I was in disbelief that he pulled a gun, and There was bouncers, security outside of Soho, and I was yelling that he had a gun.
Okay. You're telling everybody on the street that he has a gun.
Yes, I'm screaming it.
Do you follow him up the street?
Not necessarily follow. I kept my distance. I wasn't directly behind him. We was in the road. He was on the sidewalk, and I was just yelling that he had a gun.
So he's walking towards the goat.
He's walking towards Soho.
Towards Soho. Are the people that are with him walking along with him?
Yes, and they're telling him to calm down. They're also yelling back. They're yelling back, just talking crap.
And you're walking towards Soho as well?
I am walking towards Elm Street, which I'm not walking towards Soho. I'm walking down the street.
Are you walking in the direction of Soho?
No, I'm walking on the main street, on Granite Street, and they end up hitting the corner right there at Soho and went down the alley, and it was me and Trent Nash, and we broke off, and now we're gonna walk back to Trent's car, and we went to the Bank of America, or whatever the bank parking lot. We went the other way.
Went the other way.
Yep.
Where's Timothy while all this is going on?
I did not know where Timothy was at.
At some point, do you meet Timothy on the street?
I believe we went to the bank parking lot, and there was a group of people there, and we was talking to them, and then I noticed Timothy walking from the goat towards Soho. I seen him, and at that point I started yelling. I said, "Hey, the guy got a gun. He's got a gun."
So you told Timothy he had a gun?
Yes. I was yelling at him. If Timothy heard me, he heard me.
What do you do next?
Timothy came up to the intersection of the Soho, in front of Soho, and I walked over to meet him right there. And at that point, the other individuals that went down the alleyway came back out of the alley.
Are you past the Soho at this point?
Right in front of it.
Right in front of it. And Timothy's right next to you?
At that point, Timothy's right next to me. I believe everyone just met right there simultaneously.
Okay. Who else is with you?
Trenton, Nash is with me, and that's it.
You said a group met. Who else is with John?
There was two guys that were with him. I don't know the names. One was wearing blue. He was yelling and screaming along with John. The other individual was initially yelling, and then at some point he didn't want nothing to do with any of it.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
At some point he wanted nothing to do with it, with other individual, because John wasn't calming down.
So at some point, John is standing with one other person wearing blue.
He was standing with two.
Okay.
And then at some point, one of his friends just walked away. He didn't, I guess he just was out of there. He said, "I ain't dealing with this." I don't know.
And at some point, it's three of you and John, or three of you and two people?
It is me, Timothy, Trent, John, his two friends, and then one of his friends, within seconds, just walked away.
Did somebody put their hands up?
I don't remember anyone putting their hands up.
But you were there, right?
Yes, I was there.
You were really close?
I was right there.
The person in blue, if you're facing John, where's the person in blue?
To my left, John's right.
Does that person stay or leave?
He stayed.
Does John push or shove anybody at this point?
No, he was just telling Timmy he would fight him.
Timmy saying the same thing back?
Yes.
Timmy's not backing down.
Timmy said that he wasn't going to get bullied, and if they wanted to fight, they could go in the alley and fight.
John didn't go to the alley, right?
No.
Timmy didn't go to the alley, right?
No.
Timmy throws the punch, right?
Yes.
That's when the shots get fired?
It was simultaneously to a statement that John made.
I want to take this in order. Does Timmy throw a punch?
Yes.
Do the shots come as the punch is thrown or after the punch is thrown?
The shots came after the punch was thrown.
What do you do next?
I back up.
You back up. Do you stay there?
I went behind a vehicle.
Okay. At some point, the shots, do they stop?
Yes.
It was quick, right?
Yes.
Do you stay there for the police?
No.
Do you see John get arrested?
Yes.
He's in the alleyway.
He's right there in the beginning of the alleyway, standing there.
Next to the Soho?
Yes.
How long did it take the police to get there?
I don't know. Maybe 2 minutes.
The police talked to you that night?
Yes.
They talked to you on the street?
No.
They talked to you back at the station?
Yes.
Did you speak to a uniformed officer or a detective?
I'm not sure.
Did you speak to a number of officers or just one?
A number of officers.
When did you take your rings off?
I have no idea. I wear rings. I'm not sure if I took them off.
Do you remember if officers took pictures of you?
I'm not sure.
But you were interviewed that night
Yes.
on camera.
Yes, I believe so. I'm not sure.
You didn't tell the officers the truth that night, right?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure if you told the officers the truth that night?
I believed at that point I was telling officers the truth.
You told the officers a very different story about what happened inside the goat, right?
As I recollected everything that was going on, there was some misinformation.
You told the officers that John swung at you first.
At that point, yes, what I believed.
That's what you believed.
Yes.
But that's not what happened.
After I seen camera footage, I started piecing things together.
So your statement to the police was that John swung at you, and that changed after you saw the video.
Once I seen the video, I started piecing more things together. At that point in time, when the incident happened, I couldn't remember much of anything.
Mr. Mendoza, you walked right up to Mr. John DeLee, who's 6'6", over 300 pounds. Is that about right?
Yes.
And you threw a punch at him. Yes?
Yes.
You don't remember initiating that?
No. I do now.
You do now.
I do now.
Come on, man.
Now that you're under oath.
Yes, I do now.
Come on, man. I like malarkey. John messed up though, punching Nash twice. I think it was Nash that walked up to shake his hand.
You
Trey
testified
Monkey.
earlier your plan was to go to another establishment that evening after the goat.
Yes.
You
Thank you for the
got in
super
your
chat.
car.
Yes.
Trenton was with you.
Yes.
You had a phone with you that night?
Excuse me?
Did you have a phone with you that night?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, you told the police you had a phone with you.
I just stated I had a phone with me.
You tried to call 911 after the shooting.
Yes.
You were in your car.
Sustain.
You testified already that you were in your car.
Yes.
Trent was with you.
Yes.
You could have driven away, right?
Not necessarily.
You couldn't just drive away.
I couldn't. We had two other friends that their vehicle was 10-minute walk down the road.
You had a phone, right?
Yes.
Could have called them.
I don't know the numbers.
No further questions, Judge.
All right, let's take a brief recess since we've gone quite a while. So we'll take a brief morning recess.
Okay, man. It's been interesting today. Today's been interesting. John screwed up when they were outside of the bar and he punched this guy, Nash, twice. Not the person that's testifying now, the previous guy that testified. I just think that looks really bad. And so, but Mendoza's the one that sucker punched him inside the bar first. Mendoza's the one that threw the first punch. But John shoved Tim at the bar. That was the first physical touch. Taste the biscuits. Trey Monkey, thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you for the 10. Thank you for all you do, Mel. Thank you. Taste the best. Oh man, blocking me. Taste the biscuits. Taste the butter biscuits. No. Taste the biscuits. Taste the butter biscuits. That's Tim right there at the bar here, Timmy. Now, is that Abby? I think that might have been Abby or something. I don't know. That's Abby, I believe. Wait, hold on. Where Abby go? Right there. That's John walking up to confront him about what supposedly I think Abby said, that in his ear, kind of yelling, maybe talking loud. There's music there too, but shoves him right into the other guy. So Tim there, sitting. Tim gets up. There's this chick, Skeezer, comes back. There's Tim right here. I think he gets stopped for a little bit. I don't know if that's security or whatever. He's talking to somebody. It looks like maybe security starts talking to somebody. Then Tim appears walking towards John, the tall dude right here. And walks past him. Do that again. Right here. Walks past him. And there comes Mendoza. Supposedly he told the cops John punched him first, but he was actually the first one to punch. And a sucker punch too. And then they go to the ground. Timmy boy. Timmy, the punch happens. Tim turns around. He's like watching. They get taken out. Then he's standing there talking. All those people to me are kind of sketch, though. They're all kind of sketchy. And you know what was interesting to me, too, that they brought up Mendoza's history, criminal history. Because sometimes during trials, they won't let you bring up somebody's like previous thing. They might say it's not relevant or whatever. Yeah, Mendoza got priors, man. He's sketch. They all kind of sketch. Jury tampering. He was charged for. Was he a part of a murder thing or something too? I don't know. They all seem like shady characters. Hazy. Skeezers. Trust 'em. Now, I want to see Abby. I want Abby to testify. And these guys, too, they seem like they're there against their will. Too. Like they don't want to be there. Hostile witnesses. Hug a thug. So they're taking a little break. And they still got to do cross-examination, which should be interesting. Skeezers. They don't want no parts. They want John to take the fall and they don't have any kind of liability. They're afraid. Abby. I'm going to have to take back the Christmas. The Santa guy? Santa's broken again. Maybe tomorrow I'll take him back and get a new one. That's true, and the guy was 200 pounds heavier, right? Or more, I don't know. Because Tim was like 120, 125. Or like 200, well, 120 something pounds. Yeah, Santa's broken. I threw him up there. I let him hang. Chick love the kids. Don't stop and let the sun shine in. The coke and the henny. Stop and let the sun shine in. Coke and the... It's Friday. I can't believe it's already December, man. December 1st. December 1st. Bills due. Lord almighty. So would this be there's two people getting in this car? Would that be Trent and Mendoza? There's John, I think. Yeah. Who wants it? Who wants to fight? I'll fight anybody. Is that him? This person gets out of the car here. He walking over right here. Smoking a cigarette. So I guess this would be Nash. Walking over. I'm not sure why he would walk over to talk to him, to John. Like, is he just trying to make peace, or what's the purpose of this? I mean, I wouldn't, after all that stuff that happened inside. But anyway, John, aggressive. And then he sucker punches that guy. Kind of, I mean, I don't know if it's sucker punch. Kind of, maybe. I don't know if that's considered a sucker punch because it's from the front. He's looking at him, but the thing is, John was already sucker punched. So he's probably maybe on high alert. But he just, boom, knocks him on the head. I'm surprised he just stands there, too, after getting hit like that. I mean, I guess the guy's 300 pounds, 6'6" or whatever. So what are you gonna do to this guy? He's kind of hanging around, still pulling from the cig, bro. If I got hit like that, I'd be on high alert, pulling from the cigarette still. Oh, so it looked like, I think he put his hand out. Wait, hold on. John, it almost looked like John put his hand out. I don't know if he was going to shake his hand or something. And like, he's kind of like, F that. The other guy, nah, I ain't doing that. And he kind of snuffed him there. And at this point, you see, that's when this guy gets out of the car. Let's see, pay attention to the white car here, too. He's coming out. Walking over. Boom. And I understand kind of like looking out for your friend, I guess, somewhat. There was just so many ways this night could have been different had any one person just walked away, you know? Back already.
All rise for the jury.
Like a bear smacking him. Santa Gate. Gotta replace Santa, man. It's not good. It's not good for that company. Santa. A bunch of people went and bought that Santa, and he's not working.
Mr. Mendoza, my name's Scott Chase. I represent the state of New Hampshire. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to bounce around a little bit here. I'm not going to ask you to walk us through everything that you just talked about. One of the things you said was you don't like bullies, correct?
Yes.
What was the size difference between Mr. Pouliot and the defendant? How would you characterize the size difference?
It's probably twice his size.
Okay. And we heard about your background, right?
Yes.
Okay. Fair to say you have more of a street life, more street experience?
Yes.
Okay. Fair to say, from your perspective, a fight is a fight.
Yes.
Two guys want to square up and fight, they fight.
Yes.
Not a big deal.
No.
Okay. But you didn't like seeing a big guy twice pushing around a little guy like Timmy.
Correct.
Okay. And let's fast forward and let's talk about the fight between you and the defendant. Chaos? But in that fight, when you guys are rolling, everything's going on. Chaotic?
It was just a normal fight.
Okay. You go to the ground,
Yes.
get your shirt ripped.
Yes.
Okay. When you go, let's fast forward. Let's skip ahead to Soho. I think you've described the car situation enough times. Let's talk about Soho. The defendant wasn't calming down, correct?
No, he wasn't calming down.
His friends were trying to calm him down?
Initially, his friends were gassing him up, and then they were trying to calm him down.
Okay. for you, and I'm talking about when you guys are all in the center of Old Granite Street, okay? For you, if the defendant wants to fight Timmy, and if Timmy wants to fight the defendant, square up, old-fashioned fight. Even if Timmy's going to lose, that's his business, right?
Yes, and I'd said that to him.
Okay. You weren't expecting the defendant to pull out a gun if Timmy punched him, correct?
No.
There was nothing that the defendant was saying that was de-escalating the situation, correct?
They was both talking about a mutual fight.
The defendant didn't have his gun out when Timmy walked up to him.
No.
He didn't have his gun out when Timmy punched him.
He was, at that point, he was going for his gun. He had said that he would just shoot him, and then that's when, right when that was said, Timmy swung.
Was that what you were talking about as far as simultaneous?
Yes.
So as Timmy's swinging, he made that statement.
He made that statement, and they were saying, at one point, Timmy said and gestured to the alley, told him he'd fight him. He said, "I'll fight you." I was saying, guys, any of y'all's business, whatever y'all want to do, whatever, one-on-one, whatever. Trent Nash was saying, just shake hands, and that's it. His other friend, John DeLee, his friend was saying, at first, he was talking reckless, and then now he was being peacemaker also. And John DeLee, I don't know why, maybe didn't, I don't know, I guess he's used to people backing down for him for his size. And Timmy said, "I'll fight you. We can go in the alley." And he said, "I'll just shoot you." And he went towards his gun, and Timmy struck him. I watched the video of it, and I remember, and that's how I'm collecting everything, I remember I'm watching his hand go to his gun as Timmy's punching him, and I back up, and that's how it happened.
And this is all like this?
It's all like that.
Right in an instant?
Yes.
Okay. Timmy didn't pull out a gun?
No.
You had the pepper spray, but you didn't have it out?
No.
Trenton didn't have a gun?
No.
None of you guys told the defendant that you had guns?
Absolutely not.
No one ever threatened the defendant with a gun?
No.
How many times did the defendant holler out, "Please, sir, go away"?
None.
How many times did he say, "Please, sir, I'm scared, go away"?
None.
How many times did he pull out his phone and call for help?
None.
Okay. Now I want to fast forward. Shooting happens, right? You described that you had ran away.
I went behind the immediate vehicle that was on my side, and the gunshots rang out. I wasn't aware that anyone was shot. I looked over and I seen Mr. DeLee standing there, and I said something to him about pulling. I can't believe you just shot. Like, you just fucking pulled a gun out and just started shooting.
And what was his attitude back to you?
He immediately said, "You might want to check on your boy."
And did he say that like, "Hey, you might want to check on your boy, he's really hurt"? Was that his tone?
No, he was more taunting, and I didn't understand what he said. I wasn't understanding, like, that just happened. I wasn't understanding what just happened. It happened so quick, and he said, I was like, "You just fucking pulled out a gun like an idiot, just started shooting." And then he goes, "You better check on your boy. He's bleeding out." That's what he said. And then I came around the car, and I seen Timmy on the ground. And he was on his back at that point. And I didn't see any gunshot. There was no blood.
Okay.
And I went over to him, and I didn't know to get him CPR.
I want to break some of that down a little bit before we go forward, okay? So I'm just going to back you up a little bit. So you said you better check on your boy, he's bleeding out.
Yes.
And your description was, this isn't a taunting way. This isn't a, "Hey, I'm calling 911, check on your buddy, he needs help."
Yes.
Okay, and it's clearly evident.
Yep.
Okay. And you guys see each other.
Yes.
Okay. Did you have your pepper spray out at that point?
No.
Did he point his gun at you at that point?
No.
Did he tell you, "Run away, I don't want anything to do with this"?
No.
Did he ask for help?
No.
Did he try to help Timmy?
No.
State has nothing further.
Any redirect?
The Goat Bar, is that right next to the Soho?
Yes.
How many buildings are there between the Goat and the Soho?
I don't think there's any businesses. I think there might be there's no businesses between
Is
the
there
two.
an alleyway?
Not between the two, no.
You sure about that?
Yes, there is like an alleyway, but it's not. Yeah, there's like a small street. You're right.
Okay. All the parties exited the Goat at some point that evening, right?
Yes.
And they walked the distance between the Goat to the Soho, correct?
Yes.
And at least partially into that alleyway, correct?
I didn't. Not all
You
parties.
didn't, but other people did, right?
Not that alleyway.
The one next to the Soho.
There's one that's between Soho.
I'll rephrase the question. I just talked to you about an alleyway that's between the Soho and
Yes.
the Goat.
No one went down that alleyway.
No one went down that alleyway. Is there one next to the Soho further up the street?
Yes, behind the store there.
Okay. Did some parties at least make it partially into that alleyway?
Yes, they went down that alley, however far, I don't know.
Okay. And people walked there, right? Away from the Goat and towards the Soho?
They walked away from the Goat toward, yes.
No further questions.
Very briefly. So, the defendant and his friends go down the alleyway. You don't know how far.
Yeah, when they was walking, as soon as they turned and went that way, I went the opposite way.
So you didn't follow him down the alley?
No.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, you can step down. You may.
Done. Who's next? Imagine like the states, we rest our case. I mean the defense. They gotta bring Abby, right? They can't.
Does the defense have any further witnesses?
No?
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, the parties have entered three stipulations in this case, and a stipulation is a form of evidence. So let me explain that to you. I explained to you typical forms of evidence are testimony, exhibits, the view, and a stipulation is yet another form of evidence for your consideration. So a stipulation is proof or is an agreement between the parties that certain facts are true, and you have to accept those facts as established without either side having to bring in outside evidence to prove these facts. And so in this case, the first stipulation that the parties have agreed to is that on the morning of January 28th, 2023, at the time the defendant left the Goat Bar and Grill in Manchester, the car he was driving was parked at the Market Basket parking lot at 460 Elm Street in Manchester. So you have to accept those facts as established based on that stipulation. The stipulation number 2 reads as follows. The state has submitted various video clips into evidence, including state's exhibit numbers 34, 45 to 55, 58, 60 to 67, 69 to 71. The clips and portions thereof that have been entered into evidence are comprised of the portions and areas of the captured footage that is relevant to this case. Number 2, the remaining aspects and portions of the clips not included within the exhibits did not capture relevant information. Jurors are not to speculate on what may have been or may not have been captured on those aspects of videos that have not been entered into evidence. So that's stipulation number 2, and you have to accept that as established. And number 3, the stipulation is on January 28th, 2023, the defendant, John DeLee, was approximately 6 foot 6 inches in height and weighed approximately 350 pounds. So that's the third stipulation you must accept as true. I'll mark each of these as a court exhibit to go back with you into your deliberations as well. Okay, so don't start talking about the case. We're going to break now for lunch. We'll come back after lunch, do closing arguments, and I'll give you the final instructions, and then you can start deliberating. Okay, so we'll see you after lunch.
When are they coming back? Did you
1
say?
o'clock.
1 o'clock? I cannot believe that's it. Could they finish today? They could be done today. Maybe. So they have to do closing arguments. Wow.
Oh, sure.
We had discussed with the state, there are a number of video clips that are on DVDs, and while we've reviewed what's been exchanged electronically, we're asking if we could have permission to take those out of the courtroom and check them and make sure that each of them is exactly what it's supposed to be in terms of the video.
Just as long as you do it with Joni, so coordinate with her. Just because she's going to take custody and make sure. Fortunately, we've had the experience somebody's walked off with an exhibit, not intentionally, and we had a lot of scrambling over a long period of time. So I want to make sure that she's there and keeps track of it. So, okay. And so you're free to do that if you want. I know Joni needs a lunch break, so I'll let you coordinate with her in terms of the timing of that. I gave you a copy of the final instructions as modified. There's the section about whether the defendant's right not to testify is highlighted. I'll take the highlighting out. I just wanted to wait to make sure that in fact was going to be his choice. So, okay.
And Your Honor, can we come back at say 1:30 or something so that the lawyers have time to prepare their closings, or do you want to begin right?
I'd like to start at 1. Yeah, because I don't know how long your closings are, but they're going to go at least till 2, and then probably 2:30. We'll take a break, and then I've got to give that's not going to get the jury, not get the case to the jury until late in the afternoon. So I'd like to try to at least get them to start the process of picking a foreperson by, beginning or the end of the day. So.
Can counsel just have access to the courtroom because we're going to be moving? I think both sides are going to try to figure out the best way to set up the TV so they're not in Your Honor's way.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just going to be in here talking to the class. They're going to leave shortly because they've got to head out for lunch too. But just don't mind me.
For the record, the state's just going to mark with the counter if it's okay. What Mr. Saldana watched, we'll mark it just for identification, just so we have it for the record.
Oh,
That makes
And
sense.
whatever the next exhibit number is.
that's fine.
where the
Okay,
date.
all right. Thank you.
Okay, can I
Okay.
have everyone leave the boardroom except for the students?
I have to say, I thought the defense was going to offer some more than that. So why do you guys, Mandy, thank you for the super chat. Says, told you, Mel, quick trial. Why do you guys think they did not bring Abby? I saw somebody in the chat earlier say, what was it? Kelly said, too much of a liability. Because maybe she, because some of I guess it would bring a lot forth. I think it's doing them harm. Not bringing Abby and John not testifying, which usually, they always say it's not, they always try to it's better not to maybe testify on your own behalf. But I think that's all working against him. I at some point I was feeling like maybe he has some type of chance. Seeing what they've done, the defense, to me it's it's weak. It's I don't know. So, I mean, the defense, those two people that were called, Nash and Mendoza, are Tim's friends. So I guess it's expected that they're not going to be like saying stuff on John's behalf, but they are sus. They're sus as F. Super sus. Shady characters. I don't know. Well, Nash, maybe not so much. I just didn't feel like he was being forthcoming really. But definitely Mendoza, shady as hell. I don't know. But and Mendoza, 39, hanging out with 20-year-olds at a bar. Young 20-year-olds too. And to me, I just feel like the defense isn't confident. They come off as not having confidence. To me, I don't know, the way I perceive this whole thing. Side note, I am going to make a new stream. I'm going to hang out for a little bit, but I'm going to make a new stream for 1. So we'll start fresh with closing arguments. So people that rewatch, it's easier for them. But a little side note here. This is interesting. I guess this was Teach Tech Charter High School in Westmont has been canceled for today after a person threatened to shoot up the school. And so somebody, supposedly, a male subject, possibly a student, allegedly was getting bullied. The subject, possible student, posted a photo with a rifle type of gun with the pinned location of Tech Teach Charter. And I guess somebody airdropped him the picture. Yeah, the defense to me came off as not being confident. I really thought John was maybe going to try to testify, even though maybe they would have poked a bunch of holes. And honestly, the prosecution has not seemed aggressive to me, really aggressive. So I mean, I feel like he probably maybe he could have survived taking a stand. Maybe, I don't know. Mustard Mama, thank you for the 10. Says, not everyone that has a gun on them is looking for a gunfight. However, if adequately trained, you aim to de-escalate any situation. Once you draw your weapon, it's a whole new ball game. Well, I remember one time, I've told this story many times. I haven't seen this friend in a very long time, but he's a good friend. He's a firefighter. We used to work together at the hospital, pharmacy techs, but I remember one time I went to his house and he had like a room with this like storage cabinet on the side of the wall, and it had like all these guns in there. And he was showing me, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's dope. And he showed me he has a Desert Eagle. I was like, oh shoot, I want to see. So he showed it to me. Then he was like you want to hold it? And I was like, I was a little hesitant, but I held it. And he was like, oh, if you want, you can like shoot it. You can pull it just to feel it, like the trigger. There's nothing in the chamber or whatever. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. He kept insisting. I was like, nah, I'm good. And so I gave back the gun, and then when he checked, there was actually a bullet inside. You know, so. I'll make a thumbnail. Wendy, thank you so much for the gifts. 5 memberships. Amazing. Amazing. His name is actually John. This is your friend, John Wick. There was one time, too, this whole situation with John reminds me, the John in the trial reminds me of many, many years ago when I first came to Florida. And I used to hang out with this group of guys, but like I said, it was always kind of trouble when we would go out. And one time we went to this, I guess it was like a club or something. I don't even think the club exists anymore. But we went out there, and one of my friends, Joey, I guess he bumped into somebody, some guy or some girl, knocked a drink on them or something like that. And so they were pissed off, and they're arguing back and forth. Joey's kind of a hothead. And I was there with a couple of friends, and they were like, oh, let's take this outside. Let's take it outside. So they started going outside. I went out there, because I'm with a group of guys. And apparently this was like some college kid, and all their college friends were there. So, like, I don't know. We had less than 10 people, and they had like a bunch of people. They all came outside. It was literally like a line of people on their side and a couple guys on our side. And there was one guy in our group that was trying to de-escalate the situation. His name was Imran. A really good guy. And he was like walking in between. He's like, come on, guys, we don't have to do this. Come on, man. We don't have to fight, blah, blah, blah. He was the first one to get punched. Some guy from the other side ran up and like punched him. And that fight started breaking out. Now, I wasn't going to get involved because I was like, I don't want to deal with this. But the guy, the peacekeeper guy that got punched, he was getting dragged on the floor. And then some other guy ran up to him and trying to punch him while he was getting dragged. And so I ran up and I started hitting the guy that was hitting him. And that was as far as it got. The police came and like everything kind of stopped right there. But the one guy in our group that was like the leader of our group, I guess, if you want to call him that, or the guy that's like, he seemed like cool and he was like the leader of our people that was with us. He didn't do nothing. He actually kind of walked away, which, not saying that's a bad move. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it was smart. But everybody was shocked. Everybody was shocked that the leader guy in our group didn't do shit. And they were shocked that I jumped in and I got like street cred, which was really funny, I guess. So then we go to leave and I get in the car with Joey and his cousin and we're driving back. And then his cousin's like, yo, I'm going to go get my gun. I'm going to get my gun. I'm going to come back. I'm going to get my gun. And that's when I was like, you can take me home. Drop me off at my house. You go do what you're going to do. I'm good. And they dropped me off. I don't think he went back, but. And actually, Joey's dead now. I found out like a year ago or something. Or was it this year? He passed away. So some weird situation, but Joey passed away. So, but yeah, that incident reminds me of this a little bit. New cult leader. It was really crazy. Those guys really respect me for that. Then I remember one time I got hit pretty hard. This was in New York. And there was this kid I used to play handball with. And this goes to this story too a little bit. To this John, 300-pound, whatever. This kid that I used to play handball with, I didn't know him too well. One day he walked up to me and he was like, oh, I heard you've been talking shit. You've been talking shit. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. It really wasn't. This guy was a lot taller than me. Wasn't really heavy set. He was kind of, I guess, somewhat skinny or medium. But he was a lot taller. And the thing with tall people, I think they tend to have longer reach arm, which makes a difference in a fight. And so after school, he ran up to me or whatever. And I was by like these doors, and he kept telling me like, I heard you were talking shit. I heard you were talking shit. It was like in my face to the point where like there was like spit like starting to fly in my face. And so he did this thing where like, you know how like people like jerk forward to kind of try to scare you? He did that, and I swung because I thought he was going to hit me. But I really didn't hit him hard enough. I hit him like right in his little chin here, whatever. And that set him off. He got angry. And so he started like flailing like a psycho all over the place. You ever see those people just like all over the place? And I'm kind of like dodging and stuff, trying to like move around, but he's flailing all over the place. I punched him once, like try to punch him in his stomach area, but he had this big ass poofy jacket. Didn't do shit. His jacket just ate it. And he's swinging, and he finally catches me with a punch, like right there, whatever. Hit me really hard too. And so like I went down, and on the way down, I kind of blacked out for a second and came back. And then like they broke up the fight, and I had like this black and blue or whatever, somewhere around here, black and blue. And then when I went home, my mother was like really pissed off. She said, no, I'm going up to the school. No, man. I was like, Mom, no, come on, Mom, leave it alone. No, I'm going up to the school. Next day, she came up to the school, making a fit. They brought his ass in the office. He apologized. I'm sorry. And that was it. That was that story. And then after, he actually came and apologized to me because he found out like it wasn't true. But not that I want to be friends with somebody like that anyway. Poofy shirts, poofy jackets. There was actually let me see, did I send it to myself? This guy in Los Angeles got killed. I forgot. There was a news channel that posted it. But he was wearing a poofy jacket too. He had a literal axe in his hand, and he had a poofy jacket, and they kept trying to shoot non-lethals at him, and it wasn't doing nothing. And they were trying to tase him, wasn't doing shit because of that big ass jacket he had on. And so they ended up having to kill the guy. You see, he kept going at the cops, charging him. All right, let me see, make a thumbnail. John DeLee. So we should do a poll. Let's do a poll too while we have people here. And which the polls for some reason haven't really been working. But verdict. Guilty. I know, right? This isn't going to work. John DeLee. Damn, check out this picture. I can't believe they didn't have Abby testify. All right. It's almost the same as yesterday, maybe a little bit higher. 77% say guilty, 23% say not guilty of murder. But it's only 70 votes in. I don't know if it's working. Yeah, it's not working for some people. I wonder if that's happening to any other YouTubers, or is it just me? Yeah, I don't think his attorneys did that great. So, I mean, I think it's actually looking pretty good for Tim's family. Closing arguments. Okay. BL says it's all over. Okay. That's weird. Meantime, let's check this out too while I work on this thumbnail. Oh, we were watching the debate last night too, DeSantis and Newsom. That was kind of fun to watch. A mess. Florida was California. Oh, Lord. Wait, is she alive? She's probably okay, right? Model gets swept away.
Photo shoot on the rocky California coast after a powerful wave sweeps her off her feet. Minutes go by as the camera crew panics with no sign of the model. Jim Moray has the nail-biting video.
It was a picture-perfect photo shoot, a gorgeous model, and the Pacific Ocean as the backdrop. Suddenly, horror, a rogue wave comes crashing in. The model tumbles into the ocean and is swept away.
Oh my God.
Will she make it out alive? An all-out rescue effort gets underway, but she's nowhere in sight. As beautiful as it is, this location in Palos Verdes, California, is notorious for its churning waters. It's actually nicknamed the toilet bowl because the swirling motion of the waves can literally suck you in. The photo shoot was for Kate Lushkareva's 26th birthday. She began by posing in a white halter dress, then changed into the blue dress. To get a better picture, she maneuvers in the water while clinging to the rocks.
I'm videotaping just in case you fall in.
Oh man, they were
Suddenly, after the wave pulled her in, the crew calls out to her.
Are you okay?
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Police were called and rushed to help find her. Minutes went by. Then, a miracle. Here she is, still wearing the soaking wet blue gown, bruised but alive. What were you thinking?
I wasn't thinking, to be honest with you. And at that time, I thought nothing was going to ever happen to me. That's why I was so confident and so close to the water. When I first fell in the water, my body went into a shock because the water is so cold. It's freezing.
There was another surprising danger.
The weight of the dress started to pull me down to the bottom of the ocean, and I'm doing everything I can just to stay afloat. A giant wave comes and hits me to the top of the head, and I couldn't even take a breath. And I start drowning.
And at what point did you think, I may not make it?
When I was underwater, and when the current swept me under, and I started hitting against the rocks, that's when I thought I was gonna die.
She hiked up her dress, tied it around her waist, then worked her way out of the cave.
Then I climbed out of the cave on the side of it like a Spider-Man, and the rock was slippery and it kept falling back in.
Her friend Shayla Welch was recording with her cell phone.
I thought she was gone. You couldn't see anything for at least 4 minutes.
After she pulled herself together, Kate changed into Daisy Dukes, wearing one flip-flop, carrying that soaking wet blue dress.
I kept praying, God, I can't die here.
Oh my God.
She is so lucky. Just a couple days earlier, two people.
Oh my God, she's drifting away. Hey, are you okay? 7 protesters arrested near Christmas tree lighting ceremony. There's a lot of. Oh, I can't show this. Maybe in
the Rockefeller Center.
Was there fighting? Maybe there's fighting and stuff. I guess.
Headquarters. A political advisor to Rudy Giuliani confronted the protesters.
Nobody here can answer what happened on October 7th.
He was led away by cops for his own protection.
Yeah, those people, they're mobbing out there. The
ceasefire continues to hold. United with her mom.
Yeah, people are protesting about the deaths going on in Gaza. Oh, Gilgo Beach suspect's wife set to be paid $1 million for docuseries. Coming on up. We talked about this yesterday, right? Is it not, or one of the days recently? Coming on up.
His husband is the accused Gilgo Beach serial killer, and today there's growing outrage over reports that she's being paid $1 million to take part in a documentary.
There's outrage today over reports that the wife of the accused Gilgo Beach serial killer is getting a $1 million payday. Asa Ellerup and her children reportedly have the mind-blowing deal with the streaming service Peacock to participate in an upcoming TV documentary about the case. Outcry follows true crime deal for wife of Gilgo Beach suspect, says a front-page headline in today's New York Times.
The woman is a ghoul.
Attorney John Ray represents the families of 2 Gilgo Beach victims.
She's feeding off the dead whom her husband had killed. And here she is making a fortune.
This guy's a savage.
For herself. It's unspeakable.
How do the victims' families feel about this?
The victims' families are appalled. It's all around a very reckless, foolish, bad idea.
The Suffolk County, New York police commissioner who oversaw the investigation calls it a smack at the family members who lost a loved one. Hulking architect Rex Hewerman is charged with murdering 3 women more than a decade ago and is a suspect in several other still unsolved cases. He's pleaded not guilty.
Peacock tells us Hewerman.
Well, didn't she have a GoFundMe too or something? I thought. I mean, I think anybody would probably take that up, huh? Like, I mean, if you. And this guy, that attorney, was accusing her of knowing that he was like a murderer or something like that. Set the stream for 1. I think anybody would probably take it. $1 million? They'd probably take it. I mean, anybody would in this situation. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if she works or not or whatever, but $1 million, you're going to be cruising. Oh, the other thing I was wondering about too. So, I've been watching Cinema Shogun a little bit, keeping up with this mystery illness in China or whatever. Is it a mystery though? The China one, or am I thinking of the dog one? They say supposedly this thing is spreading out. Let me get it open over here. The questioning. I even heard something about Ohio. And it's a surge of children getting some respiratory. They're saying supposedly it's that it's known strains of stuff, but I don't know, man. Like the way it's like an uptick so much, and it's only affecting kids, and the committee is demanding answers from CDC. Outbreaks of new illness across China were first made public November 21st. Right, we saw that. It's widely known that China thwarted international efforts, including efforts by the CDC to respond to the burgeoning COVID-19 crisis. This made me think of a video. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. Man, I don't know what would happen if we have to end up going on another. I don't think they would do it. Another lockdown? Let's try to find a video. Where it's at. Taste the biscuits. China mystery illness. What is white lung syndrome? Mystery pneumonia illness sparks. Fears as global cases rise. So they're saying that it was recorded in Europe following cases in China. Symptoms of white lung syndrome include fever, cough, fatigue, as well as green mucus and shortness of breath. Rates of the broader type of pneumonia have reached epidemic levels in Denmark. Doctors there say days after the Netherlands reported its own alarming spike in children battling white lung syndrome. It's a type of pneumonia characterized by a dangerous inflammation of the lungs, and it is particularly prevalent in children at the moment. Nearly 150 cases of pneumonia widely have been recorded in Ohio in the past month. Oh boy. Need to stop the travel again. Close that shit up. Another election infection, right? The timing's crazy, isn't it? I don't know, man. Rubio colleague suggests Biden to ban travel from China to provide. I'm down for that. Yeah, ban travel for a little bit until we figure out, what is going on. It's probably already too late, to be honest with you, though. Yeah, I know some people couldn't handle another virus, man. Like another lockdown or whatever. The kids at home again. Imagine that. A friend from Florida says he has it. Ben Biden. Let me browse real quick to see what else we got on.
These are the stories that impact.
Squid Game. Have you guys watched Squid Game Challenge? I wasn't too impressed by it.
Squid Game is back, but as a game show.
The first game is red light, green light.
Squid Game: The Challenge is the highly anticipated spin-off of the most watched series in Netflix history. It pits 456 real-life contestants against each other to compete in games like red light, green light, just like in the 2021 original.
This is not for the average person.
Louisa Warwick is contestant 166.
Going in, I knew it was going to be a really tough experience.
However, in this version, nobody dies. They just get eliminated from the competition with paintball pellets. Those left are vying for the largest cash prize in game show history, $4.56 million.
That's what I was wondering. Do they really get that money?
The reality show faithfully recreates Squid Game scenes. Check out the hopscotch game. In the original, you lose and drop to your death. In the challenge, if you lose, you still drop, but not to your death.
Oh my God. For a 69-year-old man, these opportunities, they don't come very often.
At 69, physician Rick Mercurio, otherwise known as contestant 232, is one of the oldest competitors and a fan favorite. Was it an overall positive experience for you?
Probably the best time of my life.
But the show is facing accusations from a number of contestants of excruciating and horrific shooting conditions.
When we competed in red light, green light, it was 24 degrees Fahrenheit that day. And I was competing in, just the tracksuit for 7.5 hours. No bathroom breaks, no food, no water.
In a statement, Netflix said they invested in all the appropriate safety procedures. While it was very cold on set and participants were prepared for that, any claims of serious injury are untrue. Despite the grueling conditions, contestant 166 says,
I would sign up to Squid Game the Challenge in a heartbeat. I'd do it again.
Ba-da-bum. You never seen Squid Game, Urbe? What? That cleavage much? Oh yeah, a lady stabbed her boyfriend with rabies needles. I might cover that. Rabies needles. So he could never see another woman again. Murdoch. Okay. So I'm going to send you guys over to the other stream. I'll start that at 1 o'clock. I'm going to chill for a little bit, 30 minutes. So, yeah, we'll be back at 1 o'clock. Closing arguments. When I leave to go pick up the baby, I'll just have to listen. I'll just put it on the speaker and I'll listen till I get back. But all right, guys, I'll see you in a bit. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Closing arguments. All right, let's go. Oh, hit the wrong button.